Whether or not Palpatine threw the fight against Mace Windu is one of the most contentious Star Wars debates out there, and I have decided to use my superior weeaboo knowledge to put the final nail in the coffin on this debate. Yes, Palpatine did throw the fight. And now I will be showing the exuberant amount of evidence supporting this. But first, I want to address the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the George Lucas. When people bring up this debate, the biggest counterpoint for Palpatine throwing the fight is that George Lucas himself said Mace Windu won fair and square. Let me play the clip in question.
Okay, well this sequence always started out with Mace overpowering Palpatine, and then Palpatine using his powers to try to destroy Mace, and Mace deflecting his rays with his lightsaber. And it always was that Anakin cut the lightsaber out of his hand. But this part where he pretends to lose his power and be weak was something that I added later. Because it moved the point where Anakin turns down to this moment right here.
Okay, now let's break this down. George said this sequence always started out with Mace overpowering Palpatine. But notice how he says, this sequence. So the context of this statement is him describing the scene itself. And yes, we visually see Mace overpower Palpatine. That's the sequence of the scene. However, this does not mean this is also the undertone of the writing of the scene. George even directly says that Palpatine pretended to lose his power, if it wasn't already obvious enough from Palpatine's acting.
I'm too weak. Don't kill me, please.
Which means even if we took George's word about the scene literally, and Mace really did overpower Palpatine legitimately, it means he only won the lightsaber duel and not the entire fight itself. I can understand why many of you think we should take George's words at face value, as there's nothing to suggest that he only meant Mace visually overpowered Palpatine. Oh wait, there is, and I'm about to go over it all. Here is another statement from George Lucas on the Mace vs. Palpatine fight.
Which meant later on in the scene with the fight with Mace, we redid that scene. And at first, there wasn't the part where the Emperor gives up. He says, oh, you got me, you got me. It was basically the scene without that, where it just gets more intense, and then finally Anakin breaks down and saves him. But it didn't have the same thing as that pause in there where you think that... and it also makes the Emperor a lot more slimy. It's really fun it's a fun, dramatic thing to deal with.
In this statement, he kind of contradicted his last statement by saying initially the fight was going to get more and more intense until Anakin came and stepped in, and then he decided to add in the part with Palpatine giving up. He did not mention Palpatine losing or getting overpowered in the initial version, and in the final version he clearly said Palpatine gave up, not that he lost. That sounds a lot like a confirmation Sidious threw the fight to me. Nick Gillard was the stunt coordinator for the prequel trilogy and the guy behind all the lightsaber duels. This is what Nick had to say when recently asked about if Palpatine threw the fight against Mace Windu.
Do you believe that Mace Windu actually beat Palpatine, or was Palpatine kind of playing loose to trick him into a false sense of relaxation?
Yes, he was. Yeah. It's a tough call because I know there's big debate online about who's who in the rankings. But at that time, with the information available at that time, yes, Palpatine, as much as I love Sam, and Sam to me is second only to Yoda, Palpatine would have creamed him.
Yeah, look at that. Here we go.
Every time. He has to.
So he literally just straight up confirmed Palpatine threw the fight. The guy who made the fight. Yes, George has more say than him, but like I said, George's statement isn't so clear, while this one is black and white. Nick even said at the time of making the movie and the information available, Palpatine would have creamed him. Now let me ask you, who would have given him the information but George Lucas himself? Nick went as far as saying that Palpatine would win every time against Mace. In one of the earlier versions of the fight, Palpatine was even toying with Mace, smacking his ass with his lightsaber. And in the final version of the duel, he had his lightsaber pointed at Mace's chest at one point. Now let's go to another person who had insider knowledge on this fight. The actor for Darth Sidious himself, Ian McDiarmid. During Star Wars Celebration, a fan asked him if Palpatine threw the fight, and here was his answer.
In the film, I believe Palpatine kind of throws the fight to bait Anakin to believe that he needs his help.
Yes,
but it's always my opinion that Palpatine could have easily taken care of Mace Windu. I'm curious what your opinion is.
Yes, he wanted to. He actually, there was some debate about that scene. I mean, George thought about doing it in a number of ways, but the one that he ended up with was the best, I think, because he really, yes, he wanted to compromise Anakin in another way, which he did, and destroy Mace at the same time. And then even he, when we filmed it, it felt like it. Even for a brief moment, what I've said already about control, I think Palpatine is out of control because he gets what he wants, absolutely. And his head practically comes off. No, it does come off, doesn't it? Well, it doesn't quite. It sort of metamorphoses into the terrible person. And when we did that scene, George kept asking for more. I thought, really? I may never work again. However, more was appropriate, and more is what he got.
The answer was not as clear as I would have liked, but I think it's clear enough to tell he was saying yes to the question. He even mentioned how George Lucas had multiple ideas on how he wanted to do the fight, meaning he had some idea of what George's vision was, and made it sound like the final vision George decided on was Palpatine throwing the fight. If you want a more direct answer from Ian, here you go.
And I just got an autograph from Ian McDiarmid on his lightsaber, and I just asked him something that I don't really think anyone knows. So I asked him if he knows, or if he thinks, I went up there, I'm still buzzing. I went up there and I'm like, hey Ian, big fan, blah, blah, blah. Can I ask you a question? He's like, sure, of course. I'm like, do you think Palpatine threw the fight with Mace Windu? And he looks at me and he's like, yes.
That's about as direct as you can get. Now, we don't see him saying it himself, but the person reporting it was Star Wars Theory, the biggest Star Wars YouTuber out there, at least until I surpass him. And I find it highly unlikely he would lie about that. Star Wars Theory also had Nick on for an interview, where he again confirmed Palpatine threw the fight and Mace stood no chance.
Then I've seen interviews with George where he says Mace is powerful enough to beat the Emperor. What?
No.
What do you make of this?
No chance against Palpatine.
Okay.
Sidious, no chance at all.
Okay, so this was all just a brilliant plan.
As far as I was concerned, it was just Palpatine utterly in control of everything, as usual.
If you want to argue Gillard's opinions no longer apply after Disney took over, or an actor's words don't mean anything, there are multiple statements published after the Disney takeover that straight up confirm Palpatine threw the fight. So we have the guy who choreographed the actual fight, and the person who played Palpatine both saying Palpatine threw the fight, along with multiple canon sources saying Palpatine threw the fight, with the only counter evidence being George's not-so-clear words. I think that should be enough to prove Palpatine threw the fight. But wait, there's more. I'm now going to go through all the in-universe evidence that Palpatine threw the fight. Firstly, the narrative clearly suggests it. Palpatine has been setting up this scheme for years, with everything going perfectly. He purposefully revealed himself as the Sith Lord to Anakin. Anakin straight up tells him he's gonna tattle on him.
I'm going to turn you over to the Jedi Council.
While Palpatine was waiting for the Jedi to arrive, he was sending Anakin telepathic messages, saying if the Jedi killed him, any chance of saving Padme would be lost.
You do know, don't you? If the Jedi destroy me, any chance of saving her will be lost.
The Jedi then show up, and Palpatine only loses the literal second Anakin arrives. Anakin then proceeds to do exactly as Palpatine wants, and becomes his new apprentice. This is the guy who planned the entire Clone Wars, where he was the leader of both sides and then became Emperor of the Galaxy. You expect me to believe he purposely waited for the Jedi he knew were coming that were strong enough to possibly kill him and just hoped Anakin would come at the right time and do exactly as he wanted? That seems like an extremely stupid move for someone so smart. Why would he risk everything he built up so far in a fight with Mace Windu unless he knew he would never lose? It's not like he needed Anakin to join him for his plan to work. He was already the Supreme Chancellor and could have still issued Order 66. All Anakin did was help the clones kill the Jedi. They were perfectly capable of doing that on their own. The risk versus reward here just makes no sense unless everything was planned by Palpatine to the T and he was never in any real danger. How can he plan things out so accurately, you ask? Well, the Force, of course. In the canon novel Lords of the Sith, it was stated the Emperor's thinking ranged over time and distance in a way not even Vader fully understood, allowing him to anticipate and plan for contingencies that others did not recognize.
This is a very short little scene that shows the direction that the Jedi are going, that the Chancellor is, or the Emperor is, anticipating, and uses really to seduce, ultimately, Anakin in the next scene.
With this power, it makes it way more likely he planned everything out, rather than it just happening by chance. Now let's get a bit into the power scaling. Palpatine was able to launch himself across the room and kill 2 Jedi Masters that Mace was standing right next to before Mace could stop him. This shows Palpatine is faster than Mace, as he traveled a greater distance and killed 2 of Mace's comrades before he could react.
But I didn't know he could use a lightsaber. And twice as fast, in fact, no, 500 times as fast as anyone else.
You could argue Mace was caught off guard for the first one, but he let 2 of them die before even moving. Palpatine then killed Kit Fisto, one of the strongest Jedi who could even match General Grievous, as he was fighting Mace at the same time. This also shows Palpatine's superiority, as if Mace was better than him, Palpatine shouldn't have had the leeway to fight another combatant of that caliber, let alone kill him easily.
You know, he is not a Jedi Master, he's got to be even more powerful than the Jedi.
Speaking of caliber of fighters, if Mace was really on the level of Palpatine or better, that means he should also be able to kill his fellow Jedi just as easily. So why would he bring people that much weaker than himself with him? That's like a police officer bringing 5-year-olds with him to arrest a known murderer. It doesn't make any sense. They will only get in the way and have their lives put in danger. It makes much more sense if Mace was closer to their level. So it would be like a 6-year-old bringing a group of 5-year-olds to help him take down another 6-year-old. But it turns out he was actually 7. And he easily beat the 5-year-olds, but then pretended to lose to the 6-year-old when the adults showed up. Weird example, I know, but it works. I know many of you will try to explain this away with Vapad, which allowed Mace to channel Palpatine's darkness back at him, but that was the old Legends explanation. Vapad is not stated to be able to do that in the current canon. Even if you did use that as an argument, in the Revenge of the Sith novel where Vapad is from, Palpatine only got disarmed due to him diverting some of his Force speed into Force grip due to fear of slipping on the wet ground. So Mace only disarmed a hindered Palpatine, not a full speed Palpatine. But Palpatine also calls Mace a fool for thinking the fear he felt earlier was his. So even in this novel, it's questionable if Mace legitimately disarmed Palpatine. We can also compare these two by who they have fought in the past. And luckily, they have fought 2 of the same people, Darth Maul and Mother Talzin. Darth Sidious fought Maul and his brother Savage Opress at the same time, and was toying with them. On the other hand, Maul fought Mace Windu and another Jedi Ayla Secure at the same time, kicking Ayla as he dueled Mace, and then jumping away from a missile Mace failed to dodge. Can you honestly picture that happening to Sidious? Against Mother Talzin, Mace seemed evenly matched with her in a duel, and had to hide behind cover from her lightning. While Sidious casually disarmed her, making fun of how she's even worse than Dooku, and then matched if not surpassed her lightning with his own. Comparing their fights against both characters, I think it's very clear Sidious is superior to Mace. Count Dooku's also been shown to be able to give Mace trouble, while Palpatine just casually choked Dooku. And Dooku said Quinlan Vos would be killed as soon as Palpatine laid eyes on him, even though Vos just defeated Dooku. While Mace didn't fight him directly, Yoda's been confirmed to be the most powerful Jedi and the best duelist in the Order in multiple canon sources. And Palpatine matched Yoda in their fight in Revenge of the Sith, technically winning, which scales him above Mace. There are statements implying Palpatine grew in power after Order 66, so you could argue he only scales to Yoda after his fight with Mace already ended. But this statement is a double-edged sword, as it could also be used to argue that even if Palpatine truly lost to Mace, he would have surpassed him after Order 66. Mace Windu also has quite a few anti-feats that call into question him being Palpatine or Yoda tier. He couldn't sense Boba's assassination attempt, and then got stuck under some rubble he couldn't push off with the Force, even with Anakin's help. Yoda, on the other hand, was able to stop a living mountain. Mace got his lightsaber taken by some random goon after being knocked over by Jar Jar, and had some trouble fighting Gundarks when unarmed. You can't say it's because he was holding back on them, because as soon as he got his lightsaber, he killed one of them. Then you have Palpatine, who killed the greatest predator in the galaxy without a lightsaber. Mace was smacked in the face during a duel against some random alien warlord. A kid watching got bored of Mace's poor performance, so he just killed the warlord himself and asked if he could go home. The droid mercenary ADW-4 got the better of Mace in their first encounter, and was beating Mace in their second until Mace resorted to using the Force. Mace had an extended duel with Jedi Master Prosit Dibs, who ended up becoming the 10th brother, and dying to clones like fodder. Palpatine one-shots Jedi Masters even stronger than him like nothing. Here's what Nick Gillard had to say about Mace's and Palpatine's stance in the universe.
You know, there's something that's happened with Mace that's turned his lightsaber a bit purple. And so, yeah, he's certainly more deadly than most of them.
Yeah.
I'd have him just under Anakin and Yoda, but Palpatine is a whole nother level.
Oh, wow. You'd have him under
Me,
Anakin.
Palpatine's a whole nother level. a youngling is level 1, and somebody like Kit Fisto is 7. And I did take it to 8 and 9, but not many people know that. And 8 and 9 are a cheat. Right? So Obi-Wan is 8, Yoda is 9.
Okay.
Mace is 8, bordering on 9. Anakin is 9.
This is a tier list I made based off all the Nick Gillard statements I've seen. It's worth noting Nick said the levels initially came from Lucas, but I can't confirm Lucas signed off on all the numbers Nick stated. Though I assume it's very accurate to his vision since they talked and made the movies together. If you guys want an in-depth video on this tier system or a live stream of me making a tier list based off these rankings, let me know. I want to be fair to Mace and say that there are some statements that put him on Palpatine's and Yoda's level. And George himself said that you have to be either Mace or Yoda to compete with the Emperor. But I think that's to be expected of someone who's at least Dooku's level, as we saw in episode 2 with Dooku's fight against Yoda. Mace could still be close to Palpatine and be able to give him a good fight, with Palpatine holding back just enough to purposely not kill him and wait for Anakin to arrive. Nothing's really contradicted. Now let's go back to what if Palpatine truly lost the lightsaber portion of his duel against Mace. Could he have still won the fight? I would say yes. There's direct proof Palpatine's more powerful than Windu, as he was able to hold a full-on conversation while being hit by his own lightning, while Mace was just getting electrocuted when he was getting hit. Which means one of two things. 1, Palpatine was initially holding back the power of his lightning, and considering Mace was barely holding it back as it was, there's no way he could have held off an even stronger blast. 2, Palpatine was always using his full power, but he's just way more durable than Mace, and can handle being blasted by his full-powered lightning for almost a minute straight. The Revenge of the Sith novel was apparently heavily reviewed and edited by George Lucas himself, and in the novel it was clearly stated Palpatine's lightning was beyond Vapad, and Mace himself admitted Palpatine was too strong for him. Mace was only saved due to Palpatine deciding to fake being weak. Palpatine screaming about having unlimited power would also be pretty weird if he actually just lost and needed to be saved by Anakin. So even if Palpatine did lose the saber fight, the evidence still points to him being able to win via his superior force power. I would also like to bring up Palpatine becoming deformed after his lightning hit him in the face. The evidence points to these not actually being lightning scars. It's either 1, his true face was revealed by the lightning and his normal looking face was a mask, similar to how he can hide his yellow eyes, or 2, all the dark side energy caused rapid dark side degeneration and figuratively revealed his true face rather than literally. I say this for a multitude of reasons. 1, nobody else hit by lightning had anything like that happen to them. 2, Palpatine was only hit in his face, and yet for some reason his hands and fingernails also turned evil looking. 3, Palpatine's yellow eyes revealed themselves at the exact same time his face turned evil looking. 4, possibly the biggest one. In episode 9 when Palpatine is initially shown in his new clone body, his face clearly no longer has the wrinkles on it. It's still messed up, don't get me wrong, but the classic wrinkles from the lightning are gone. Later in the movie, after absorbing the dyad and restoring his power, the wrinkles magically come back. Like I said, this is not his original body, so it shouldn't have any lightning scars, and it clearly didn't before absorbing the dyad. This proves this shriveled up face appearance is just what happens when someone has enough of the dark side flowing through them. So really the only question is if he already looked like that, or if the dark side of the lightning just warped him. Ian McDiarmid makes it sound like it might have been his true face the entire time, but he might have been talking more figuratively about the mask rather than literally. I'll play the clip so you can decide.
And George said, I've said this before, some of you probably heard, one day when we were filming, he said, you should think of your face, Ian's face, the senator's face, as Sidious's mask. So in a sense, your eyes, your real eyes, are his contact lenses. And that was enormously helpful. I didn't do anything as a result of it, but just thinking, that behind my own features and in my own eyes was a hidden presence. That was a help.
There's a guidebook statement that blatantly confirms it was his true face the whole time, but there are others saying the opposite, which is why I didn't just post this scan and call it a day. Anyways, why did I go off on that tangent? Well, because some people ask if Palpatine threw the fight, why would he let himself get scarred like that by his own lightning? So I wanted to show he wasn't actually scarred or physically damaged, or in any sort of danger. He just became ugly. And he used that face to garner sympathy from the Senate so they would turn on the Jedi. It literally helped his plan. And I wouldn't even be surprised if he planned that part in advance as well. Okay, at this point, if you've actually watched through the whole video, I think it's probably pretty clear to you Palpatine threw the fight. At the very least, if Mace legitimately disarmed him, Palpatine still had the fight under control due to superior force power. I could even argue Palpatine used up some of his energy killing the other Jedi Masters and Mace only disarmed a fatigued Palpatine, as we saw in The Mandalorian with Grogu that using the Force tired him out. If you're really dead set on thinking Mace could have outright won the fight, this does not scale him above Yoda or later versions of Palpatine, as Palpatine got stronger over time. And by the time of the original trilogy, he was so powerful he could crush Vader like a tin can. Yeah, I don't see Mace doing that. So in conclusion, George's statement is not as clear as many believe. The person who choreographed the lightsaber fight and the actor of Palpatine both directly confirm Palpatine through the fight. Narratively, it makes the most sense for Palpatine to have thrown the fight. Out-of-universe statements imply and confirm Palpatine through the fight. All the power scaling lines up with Palpatine being stronger than Mace, which means he likely threw the fight. Even if he didn't throw the fight, he still had the ability to defeat Mace with the Force if he really wanted to. And he became even stronger after his fight with Mace, which makes a match between them and their primes even more of an open and shut case. Thank you everybody who took the time to listen to this whole video and heard what I had to say. I know a lot of people are probably just going to go right to the comments and type things like George confirmed Mace won and things like that without watching the video, so if you see any of those, please shame them for me. If you actually watched the video and have any real criticism or counterpoints, let me know in the comment section. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. And if you ever had this debate with anyone, share this video with them. If you want to see more content from me, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Together we can destroy the faulty power scalers and bring order to this community.